We are talking The Night Shift, directed by the China brothers, who also wrote the movie. And this one stars Phoebe Tonkin, who I thought looks the spitting image of that girl from Twin Peaks, Madskin Amek, I think her name was. My God, they must be related. Anyway, The Night Shift. So this is a kind of haunted hotel movie. Effectively, it follows the character of Gwen, who is a woman who is effectively starting a new job working in this kind of roadside motel. And it's a kind of cash-in-hand job. There is the hotel is rather run down. So she kind of meets the kind of the owner of the hotel, sort of shows her the ropes and everything, and then she's kind of left to her own to start the night shift. There's one guest in the hotel, but strange things start to happen. Some of it's just mundane, run down. There's like large amounts of rats, but there also seems to be some type of supernatural things that are happening. Maybe ghosts. There may even be a potential murderer in the kind of the area as well. And what will happen? Well, you'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss The Night Shift. So this is a pretty decent, well put together, somewhat predictable kind of horror thriller. I think it's, genuinely speaking, it has a likeable kind of lead, who I think makes for, an engaging kind of character that you kind of instantly sort of root for and sort of like follow. I think the location, this kind of dilapidated motel, but it's not overdone. It just looks run down, but there is a kind of, it looks kind of like, well, this looks a bit sketchy. I mean, you may be thinking there may be more like crackheads around the corner rather than ghosts, but I think it's a good location. And then when we do have our sort of supernatural sequences, I would say that they're done pretty effectively. There's a great sequence in a hotel room where Gwen is on the phone and stuff's kind of going on behind her and things like this. That was all pretty good. And then we have factor in a couple of other elements as well. The kind of like, there's rats, there's roaches, and like I said, there's the possibility there may even be a kind of stalker / murderer in this movie. And so there's a kind of quite a lot to deal with. The movie is played kind of quite straight, and I kind of quite like that. There is a little bit of comedy injected by the owner of the hotel, but other than that, I think it's played pretty straight. And I think it does get a little bit tense here and there. But it's quite slick to look at. I would say the presentation of the movie, the production design, the kind of the quality of the filming is all fairly good. What doesn't work in this movie, it's very predictable. I mean, it does have a kind of a gotcha moment, I suppose. I won't say what it is clearly, but nonetheless, it still plays relatively kind of predictably. I think if I had to go a little bit further than that, there are a few things here that just seem a little bit convenient. For instance, the very first room that Gwen cleans, she just happens to leave a pair of scissors in a certain place that will come back into play kind of later on in the movie, and things like that. Well, that was lucky that you kind of left them there, wasn't it? And things like this. So there's a couple of instances where I think, well, that was, that kind of lined up perfectly. The end of the movie, I'm not talking about necessarily the twist exactly, but it didn't really make that much sense. If you look at this and look at it through a logical lens and think, again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's hard to sort of say without doing so. But effectively, once you watch the movie as a whole, you think, realistically, there'd be more ramifications about what would happen at the end of this movie, with various kind of outside sources and stuff. I just don't know if it just was a little bit kind of like silly at the end of the day. Speaking of silly, I think we have our comedy relief character, who is our owner of the hotel. His character seems so at odds with the rest of the film. I think he's just put in there to have a few laughs, but it's a very different vibe compared to the rest of the movie, which takes itself relatively kind of seriously, and he seems like he's acting from a different film, if I'm honest. So it's certainly a watchable film. I think there are some you know, some enjoyment to be had from it. It does very feel like, you know, horror paint by numbers. You know, I kind of say this. You know, we have these things that happen behind, you know, someone. You know, we see a ghostly image behind someone, and then our protagonist turns around. There's nothing there. And I'm thinking, well, you know, who is that ghost appearing for? Because if it's visible to us as the audience, is it appearing for us as the audience? Because if the character's turning around, then it can't be seen. Why is it seen when she's not looking? Doesn't make sense to me. And this movie especially doesn't make sense when you watch the movie as a whole in regard to that area specifically. But still, I still kind of enjoyed it. It was well put together, and it's a fun, if not forgettable, movie. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I look forward to seeing you next time.